Hello there, creatures, and welcome to another episode of Encounter This. I am your host, James Rumbly Tumbly Kid, and with me, as always, is Freeman, tumor-like growth Ice Tin, and popping around to help us with the combat is Cam Anguish for Supper Terry. Today we're going to be talking about the Nyogoth and the Chernobue as we continue our dive into the Qlippoth realm. So I think we're just going to start with Freeman taking it away here. Hey there, creatures, and welcome to Encounter This, a podcast exploration of the creatures from Pathfinder 2nd Edition and the lore that surrounds them.
Yeah, man, the trend continues with these unpronounceable names, and I don't think it will ever finish. I think Chernobue has become the easiest one. You even just said Nyogoth wrong because it's just Nyogoth.
I know.
It just rolls off better, and it's been a struggle. It's been a proper struggle, more than usual for us. Just for these creature names, there's always seems to be maybe credit to the writers of these. There seems to be that extra word or letter or syllable or something that feels like it's in the wrong spot.
Definitely,
because these things are so very alien. But let's talk about the Nyogoth, which does appear in both first and second edition Pathfinder. I would like to start with a quote from 2E that says, "These things are little more than a mass of intestines encircling a massive gaping maw." Now, it's not a very interesting quote, but I wrote it down because I feel like we've covered entirely too many creatures that fit that description, like over the years.
Yeah.
Does it have a gaping maw? Yes. Is it toothy? Of course it is. Are there intestines and/or tentacles? Yeah, obviously. It's just so many of those in all of these games.
Just our go-to creatures.
Yeah. So, and my next bullet point is fanged mouths. Tips of the coils that they have. Oh, that's the wrong picture. That's your Chernobue. That's your sneak peek. There you go. There's your Nyogoth. And so as opposed to being tentacles, they are supposed to be intestines of some sort, and they end with these like toothy maws. So they have mouths in the end of them. The body is supposed to be filled with highly corrosive fluid as well, really keeping into that intestine theme. And it apparently squirts through the air with convulsive movements.
That's the creature, not the corrosive fluid.
Yeah, well, I think it's squirting the fluid to like propel itself. Okay. I think it's the thing.
That's not better.
No, it's really not. It's not. They are supposed to be about 5 feet in diameter. It's 1.5 meters or so, and 260 pounds of intestines. That's about 118 kilograms. And but apparently they can grow much larger. That's your kind of standard size. They are scavengers of the outer rifts, and they survive on the leftover filth and body parts of both demons and Qlippoths, basically. However, they do love them some fresh living prey. And despite being considered a somewhat lowly creature for this whole scavenger nature, they are far from stupid and are very capable of setting up an ambush to acquire said fresh meal. They just really don't mind a leftover one. Not at all. Now, 1E expands on this a little bit if we go back. And it says that like all outsiders, that with that previous designation, they can survive indefinitely without food. I didn't realize that was a thing. Maybe at some point I'd read that, but yeah, all outsiders, or whatever we're calling them now, can survive indefinitely without food. But these creatures, when they go more than 12 hours without food, despite being able to survive, they become increasingly erratic and violent, and they will fight to the death for their next meal. Not because they need it. They just want it that bad. They're real foodies,
Yeah,
They're Epicurean.
I feel seen.
They are, and now these creatures are born. This is really weird. They are born from creatures that are absorbed by a different Qlippoth known as the Iathavos. which we will cover later. It's actually not a 2E creature. It's only in 1E so far, but we will discuss it in a later episode. But apparently being absorbed by this Iothavos is one of the worst fates an explorer of the Outer Rifts can face. So Nyogoths are basically born from this absorption or some such. And then when they are born, they squirm all along the Iothavos body, and basically consume the waste matter that it leaves behind as it's feeding, as these things kind of grow up in fully form. Yeah.
Okay. So it's it's a massive lampreys that are intestines that have their own mouth that act as a remora fish.
Exactly. Yeah, I was going to say it's like one of those fish that's got a symbiotic nature with the other larger animals. They clean them off, but they get to feed off the leftovers and stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, that's the Nyogoth. Straightforward scavenger intestine creature. I love this artwork, by the way.
This one, the 2E one that's on the screen right now?
No, I think that's the 1E. Is that the 2E one or the 1E one? I got it all mixed up in my head now. Oh no, that is the 2E one. You're right. Yeah, it's great. There's a real sliminess to that. Yeah, it feels like they went for a little extra level of realism beyond the usual.
There's a touch more sheen than normal. Yeah. Yeah, this thing is just awful. Every aspect of it makes me so uncomfortable. I do not enjoy looking at it.
Yeah, it's extremely unpleasant. You're like, what? Where's its eyes? I don't think it has any eyes. Anything without eyes but writhes around at you and comes at you is it's not okay.
It's a mouth made of other mouths, and that just doesn't work well for me. I don't care for that.
Oh, so good. Well, we did have a light experience with this creature in one of our colloquially named Kambats. But let's talk about the mechanics of this guy. We are looking at a level 10 creature, so we're jumping up a reasonable amount. AC 29, 175 HP is a medium size, so you can imagine from the 5 feet in diameter kind of thing. Everything is pretty above board. Because they're fiends, we're looking at religion. This creature, like many of these, not all of the Qlippoths have been updated with the remasters. So this one, if you're on Archives of Death, is lacking the unholy trait. If you want to play a remastered update,
has the unholy trait?
It's lacking. It should have the unholy trait. So if you want to update it for the remaster, if you're using these creatures, we'll cover a couple of those things that we've already done with some of the alignment stuff. So unholy should probably be attached to that. It is an uncommon creature, as you can imagine. But beyond that, again, with updating changes in language from Abyssal to Chthonian, I loved that this creature basically has a 21 in stealth. I don't know how this thing could be stealthy exactly. When it's rolled around,
it just sloshes around, I would imagine.
Yeah, and if it's squirting its way around with its own corrosive fluids, doesn't seem like a subtle thing.
Just the sound of spaghetti falling off a fork mixed with wet farts.
Yeah. Ever go back 5 seconds and close your eyes? Just listen to James say that again.
Or don't. Maybe don't. That sounds awful.
I highly recommend.
Freeman's new ringtone.
Look at the same resistances. These seem to be pretty universal across the board for all these stat blocks. Mental 10, physical 10, cold iron with the exception. So I think it's gone up from 5 to 10 from our previous stat blocks. We are now removing the lawful weakness because of the remaster. And this creature in particular, in addition to what's usual, immunity to controlled fear, which seems to be across the board, this thing is also immune to acid because I guess it's already just really at home with acid. So that's that. Melee wise, we're removing chaotic traits and chaotic damage to offset that weakness to lawful again for the remaster. But we're looking at a jaws attack and a tentacle mouth attack. At first, before I went back to look at this picture, I was making myself a long note, being confused as to why we have a jaws and a mouth attack that were different from each other. I was like, how is this thing biting two different ways. Is it like biting with its teeth and then gumming you afterward? But then I realized, oh, there's mouths. There's mouths on the end of the tentacles. Right, I'm an idiot. But that being said, there's very little difference between these attacks. It is so super standard thing that you'll see in a lot of these stat blocks for 2E, and that they'll have an attack that is not agile and hits harder. And then you'll have an agile attack that hits basically reducing your multiple attack penalty, but has a lower damage. But the difference here is really quite small, because you look at the jaws. Does 2d6 plus 13 piercing plus 2d6 acid plus grab. And then the tentacle method is 2d6 plus 13 piercing, 1d6 acid plus grab. So you're losing 1d6 acid, but what you are gaining is the agile and reach 10 feet.
That's crazy that agile and reach are both only worth 1d6 mathematically. Like the two of them together is pretty.
That's why it stood
wild.
out to me. That's why it stood out to me. Yeah, either the jaws is underpowered or that tentacle mouth is overpowered. It feels to me. And let's not forget that these originally both included an additional 1d6 chaotic. So if you were hitting a lawful creature, they were getting extra fucked up. But we're looking at a level 10 creature, so I don't think it's unreasonable to have that many d6s floating around. But it did stand out that there was such a small difference in damage between those two, and the offset just being a 10-foot reach. So something to think about. I mean, I don't know if it'll make or break anything.
Worth 1d6. Yeah. I mean, I can see reach or agile each being worth 1d6, but the two of them together being worth 1d6, because that's a +1 to hit and 5 feet of reach that you're adding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, just don't use a jaws attack, I guess. I mean, they both grab, right?
Just stay at the distance, really. Yeah, I don't think you have much to lose.
Around a bit.
But that does bring us to the next one, which is Feeding Frenzy. It's a 2-action. Actually, I want to double check that just in case I did that wrong. But I think it is a 2-action.
It is 1 action.
It is 1 action. Okay, I thought so, because this is basically this creature's version of Rend or similar abilities. So I do have it wrong here. It's called Feeding Frenzy. It's basically if you have the creature grabbed, you can then deal slashing damage plus acid damage with a basic fortitude save. So it's like super classic. It's a Rend, it's a rip and tear, it's all sorts of things across this game.
Right.
So remembering now that you have to spend an action to get the grab, and you now with Remaster have to roll to make sure you do in fact grab. So that's a third action in one turn kind of thing happening. But if the grab stays, you can keep hitting that Feeding Frenzy spam button, which can be really dangerous.
Yeah, very dangerous.
Yeah, if you hit the squishy wizard. Beyond that, we have Nauseating Display. This one's got to be 2 actions. It has Incapacitation, very important to remember. It's actually got lots of traits. It's Concentration, Emotion, Enchantment now removed, Fear, Incapacitation, Mental, Occult, Visual. Things like this need to have all of those different things, because these different traits, because you get +1 bonuses to emotion effects or fear effects or mental effects. Certain creatures will be obviously immune to mental effects. Visual things coming into play, is there blindness, is there darkness, all these things that they do matter. So keep all of those in mind for any of the GMs out there. But basically what happens is something horrific. This Nauseating Display is basically an untangling of tentacles and a prolapsing of all the many mouths, which is the stuff of nightmares. This will go into a 30-foot emanation, DC 29 will save. You are temporarily immune to any further of these displays, so even if there's multiple creatures for 1 minute, which is very important as well. But of course, this is a brutal effect because, and again, that's probably why it has all these traits, especially the incapacitation. On a success, your second one. On a failure, you're stunned 3 in second one, so there goes 1 of your turns. And on a critical failure, you were stunned 5 and second 2. So there goes, 1 and 2/3 of a turn, plus sickened.
Does stun kick down every action?
Yeah, stunned is like slow, but it like overrides. So it's the same deal, yeah. Unless there's the addition of like for 1 minute, it basically, it just ticks down per action. So if you're stunned 5, that's your next 5 actions are basically taken away.
Crazy.
Yeah. So it's gnarly. And then if you critically fail that and you're stunned 5 and sickened 2, like you are in such danger, I think.
You gotta wait 2 turns just to throw up once.
Yeah, exactly. And very simple reaction for this creature, but I do really love it. It basically, it's called caustic blood. So if it takes piercing or slashing damage, it can use this reaction to spray acidic blood to all adjacent creatures, not just the person attacking. So you're getting like a little 5-foot spread here, and it's 66 acid with a DC 29 reflex save. So it's not messing about, just as a reaction. So I think that's pretty fun. Yeah. And last but not least, we have some spell casting for this creature. They all come with a little bit of basic stuff, and this is pretty thematic. It's the occult and innate. I highlighted occult in my notes here because I mentioned it behind the scenes. I'm not sure where and when it happened, but during our combats, I'm reasonably sure, unless I dreamt it, I'm reasonably sure you had asked what kind of spellcasters are these, because you thought they were occult. And I'm pretty sure I confidently said they're divine, and I'm pretty sure Cam backed me up. Yeah, they're divine. We were wrong. They are occult across the board.
All of that is correct.
Yeah. Okay. So in that combat, we fucked it up. And I don't remember if it actually came to something that mattered. The reason I said it like so confidently is I had something that it mattered to. I don't know if I ever used it. But
it would have mattered to me a lot because my occult and my investigator was much higher than my religion early on.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. But they are religion checks for the recall knowledge because of their fiend nature, right? Which is kind of, so they're kind of.
I don't like that either. I don't think they're fiends. I think they're aberrants. Like they are.
But they're not, because that is the conversation we had a while ago about whether or not these things are like the Cthulian thing. They aren't. They feel like it, but they aren't. Yeah, and so it's interesting. Yeah,
it's such an arbitrary difference to try and differentiate 2 of the exact same types of creatures that it bothers me.
Yeah,
it
is.
These are very clearly aberrant. They're from beyond the scope of space and time. So that
they basically
makes them aberrant. They're not.
Yeah,
they're objectively not.
But they're so
closely mechanically
intrinsically, physically, metaphysically entrenched into a particular plane. So they are fiends.
Totally.
That's
but to me, fiend has like a connotation to it. On that Punnett square of law and order and goodness. Like fiend has a connotation of like evilness, whereas I don't see Qlippoths as evil. I see them as true neutral.
I mean, if they're not true neutral, they're chaotic neutral,
sure.
I would argue, but
I mean, at the end of the day, the fiend it's not going to change my mind. Like if I were running a Qlippoth campaign, I'd just make them all aberrants because that makes more sense to me.
I think that would be totally fine. I don't think that would make a real difference, especially if you're not really planning on bringing. If you're bringing, actually, whether or not you're planning on bringing a bunch of demons in as well, because they kind of coexist in that in a good story. It's hard to leave the demons out. But that's an interesting way to like actually spread the love of your recall knowledge. Just make these guys aberrant, make those guys religion, and like kind of spread it out. Casting, they have fear at will at level 3. Acid arrow, which is just thematic as all hell. Translocate, and then this is I think we were hit by the old nauseating display in our combat. I'm quite sure we almost get totally fucked by it, but I think I remember calling out the incapacitation, which made all the difference because we did fight this around the same level as this creature.
So I think we got hit from the Chernobue's nauseating display, not the Nyogoth.
Oh, maybe, they might have something as well. What we did get hit by from this thing is its rank 5 spell, Cloud Kill, which kind of messes up a little bit because we had to kind of, when you start your turn in that, it hits you. And I think one of the characters made the mistake of turning it twice. But sometimes that happens.
I'm not going to name names, but somebody who was magical religious blood decided to not move. They just decided they were gonna try and out-breathe the poison
I
cloud.
genuinely didn't remember who it was, but I guess it was me.
I remember who it was.
I know. And it's worth noting too. I made a mistake here, or I didn't catch this. Cloud Kill is actually now called Toxic Cloud in the remaster.
It also moves 5 feet per every round, and I don't think we did that either.
Does it?
It's supposed to.
Oh, and that's you conjure a poisonous fog. It functions as mist. Okay. And the air, except the area moves 10 feet away from you each round.
10
moves
feet
away from you each round. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
A breathing creature that starts its turn takes poison damage. Blah, blah. Okay. Oh, that's cool. That is really cool. So you kind of want to start it close to you and have them walk through it. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this was Corvin's spell. Like, this is what he used to essentially clear out that room of ogres.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Many things cleared out that room of ogres. That fight was crazy.
And I believe Pavo's Druid Bartov for this also has Toxic Cloud at this level.
Oh, yeah?
But I never used it because they weren't clumped up enough, and a 10-foot drift per round didn't seem very valuable.
Yeah, it feels like it's most valuable in a, well, what do you call it? One of those rare long 5 foot wide hallways.
Yeah, wrong adventure.
So yeah, that's the Nyogoth. It is a really simple creature to run, I think, all in all. When you're going just a straight combat,
and we smoked
got
it.
some reach.
Like,
we smoked it, yeah, but it was paired with our next creature, which we didn't smoke so much.
Which we didn't smoke so much. Yeah.
Which, I mean, and partially, I think that's partially because this thing served as a really reasonable distraction. I think we still did get a little bit sickened from it. That we took damage from that cloud.
Yep.
There was no doubt about it. It was there it existed in our combat to distract us and whittle us down a little bit for the real champion, which is the Chernobue. Now, this is the first time we have jumped ahead in levels for our creatures ever on Encounter This when we're doing a suite. So we're actually going to jump there. Yeah, we think. Yeah, there is technically a creature between the Nyogoth and the Chernobue, but because we paired these, we decided to pair it for this episode as well. And they're quite thematic to each other beyond that. So let's talk about the Chernobue. This thing is much larger. It is 13 feet or 45 meters in size. About 500 pounds.
Meters in size.
Did I say 45 meters? Yep. Same difference. 4 meters, thank you. 500 pounds or 226 kilograms, basically made of writhing tentacles that each have a mouth on the end, if you can imagine. Here we go. Yeah, there's our Chernobue. So you can see that similarity already. It has a singular bulbous eye and another big ass toothy mouth where its underbelly should be. If you look close enough, you'll notice that's a slobbering mouth on the underside. They are described as a tumor-like growth of oily blackness. Another Tui quote that's a little more visceral.
I think that's the
I love that one.
Yeah,
I love that.
This is the
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that tongue hanging out the bottom is so weird.
Yeah, very weird.
These things apparently can be convinced to engage in conversation, but said conversation really only will continue to take place over a period of time if the conversation partner is doing nothing but providing grim and atrocious details and subjects. So it's got a very limited scope of interests.
Fun dude.
But all you need is one really gnarly PC to just distract it for a while. Maybe that helps in some capacity. It's worth noting. It's worth noting. Like, I'm going to tell you all the times that all the horror stories of when I worked in the underground part of the Aurorium Coliseum. Like, I don't know, just start talking about weird shit, and maybe it'll just pause for a second and enjoy it. But yeah, so it wants grim subjects. Otherwise, it basically its only other motivation is to infect all creatures it comes in contact with and spread pain and calamity wherever it goes. So It's real. Not someone you're bringing home for Christmas, that's for sure. Literally said, but maybe Thanksgiving, because it's literally said to, quote, shed ruin and sup on anguish. The classic family Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah.
That's it. That's literally it for lore. This thing is simple as all hell. There ain't much going on. Nothing really about its origin. It just want to destroy things and enjoy a good gritty tale.
For audio listeners, it's kind of like a giant. If you took the head of a Nothic and put the body of an octopus on it, I guess that's about as close as we're gonna get.
I'll be straight up.
It's real weird.
It looks like a mutated sperm. Is what it looks like.
Okay. Yeah, like a twin tail. Yeah. I see it.
It's got a twin tail, but with an extra fronds that it shouldn't have. Something
from the DC Green Lantern comics or Osmosis Jones or something.
Yeah, there you go. And then it's not a healthy color for a sperm at all.
No, it's not a healthy color for any creature, really.
No, it really isn't.
Just tar black. Oh, actually, it does kind of look like the tar monster from Scooby-Doo.
Oh, does it? Maybe that's your pop culture reference. I'll give you a sec to find it. So we're going to jump not a big distance in mechanics here, but let's talk about those real quick. We're going to look at a level 12 creature, AC 33, HP 220. It is a large, and again, this creature is lacking the unholy trait on Archives of Nethys. So if you are looking to update it to remaster, a lot of the same stuff applies. Now, this thing has a movement speed of 30, but it also has a constant, I'm jumping ahead a little bit to the spells. It has a constant airwalk, which I've put under its fly thing here. So airwalk is specific on that. This thing can't fly, but it can walk on air only at 45-degree angles. I don't remember that specifically being described to us from Cam when we fought this thing.
No, but
it was in the air when we fought it, and it did kind of float down to us. Exactly. So I think Cam just kind of cleverly hit it, because we did fight it. We did start fighting it, and we weren't looking at this. So we'll come to that in a bit. This thing has greater dark vision, so it sees through magical darkness, and has scent of 30 feet. So it's got a lot going on for its senses and its perceptions here. Otherwise, again, mental, physical resistances are at 10. Same exceptions. Immune to controlled and fear. Lawful weakness remove. Remove that for the remaster. Jaw, literally the same. Jaws and tentacle mouth attacks. But we don't have any acid here. Well, we do have the tentacle mouths reaching up to 15 feet because this is a large creature as opposed to medium. We're still doing piercing damage. There is the agile on the tentacle mouth, but there's a lack of grab and a lack of acid damage. What we do have from the jaws is a poison being added, which we'll discuss near the end. But just on the jaws, not on the tentacles. Paralyzing display. I think you're right. I think this is the one that got us.
Yeah, because we got hit pretty hard by one of these.
Yeah. Again, with a long list of traits, they are, as far as I can quickly see, all the exact same from the previous one. In this case, the eye pulses as the lids peel back and reveal a mind-bending, and I quote, awfulness. It's super not specific.
Not at all.
Something indescribable, apparently, even to the creators. 30-foot emanation, just like the previous one. DC 32 will save, immune to further displays for 1 minute. So you're super similar, right? On a success, you were slowed one for 1 round. On a failure, you were paralyzed for 1d4 rounds and can attempt a new save at the end of each turn. And then a critical success is as failure, but for 1 minute. One of us got hit for that 1 minute. I think I remember.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was me again.
Yeah. So and so that immediately it's not throwing that sickened out at us, but that paralyzed 1d4 rounds instead of instead of stunned 3 or paralyzed for a minute. Yeah, you're getting those repeated saves, but that's a high potential for a lot of wasted turns.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I did.
it's not good. And you did. Can't really love taking you out of the fight this week. That's crazy.
Just easy, I guess.
The first thing we're going to talk about for passive options is something that is removed, and Cam had brought it up to us after the combat was done because it would have made this creature more deadly. So I'm curious to see what we could suggest for our own remaster kind of options. Basically, it's called the Aura of Order's Ruin. It had the Aura, Necromancy, and Occult traits. And it basically says a lawful or good creature that begins its turn in the Aura's emanation must attempt a DC 29 will save or become sickened 1. Lawful good creatures instead become sickened 2. So if you've doubled up, you become sickened 2. So that's your very similar thing. That's another thing that's making this quite similar to the Nyogoth, because you have something to apply the sicken to certain creatures. But because they have removed alignment, this whole aura is basically completely negated. It just can't work with the remaster. The first thought I had was that you could apply it becomes a more limited scope. You can apply it to holy creatures, basically. So anyone that's like, like your champions and your clerics that have kind of picked the holy versus unholy kind of side of things. It's a very limited scope, but it's a quick and dirty way of like affecting something that is opposite of what this creature should be, which is unholy or have the unholy trait. The other thing is Boiled by Light. I don't think this came in for us. The Chernobue basically takes 2d10 fire damage. I think it probably should have. It might have been something missed. Yeah. Because if it's in bright light at all, if it starts its turn in bright light, it takes 2d10 fire damage. I don't know if we had specifically lights on us because we were fighting this in a place that was illuminated enough for us to go toe-to-toe with something. We didn't have to worry about dark vision for this fight.
Well, actually, we did,
for
because
ourselves.
this came down in a cloud of darkness.
Right. It did. It came down in like a big black ball of darkness, basically.
Yeah.
So we needed to pierce that somehow. I don't remember how we pierced it.
It was dancing lights from the druid, because they had advanced dark vision, so they could see through the spell, and then they hit it with fairy fire.
Does fairy fire emit bright light?
No, it doesn't. But I think one of us hit it with a bright lance.
I feel like I remember trying to hit it with holy light, and maybe that would have counted. But it would not have been a persistent light effect. It would have just been something that like cancels out the darkness, like removes the effect. It wouldn't have been persistent, so it wouldn't have started its turn in it, right? So that's a huge thing. There was a lot of discussion about light and dark for these fights and our other podcast recently for something that's high. So it's like, how they interact with each other and how they cancel each other and how they suppress each other is not as like cut and dry as you might think. It's not just a big counteract check all the time. So make sure GMs and players alike get in there and kind of keep an eye on those rules and look at the traits, the light trait and the darkness trait. Those are important because we missed them a little bit.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah. So, and then always read the last lines of your spells, or the last couple at least. Some of them will like specifically say if it passes through magical darkness at all, it negates the effect. It'll cancel it, kind of thing. So long as the level is the right level, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
So yeah, this didn't come into play that I recall, and maybe that was legit. Maybe it would just happened to be what we used. Didn't really didn't make it trigger.
Well, if you're a patron, you can check on the video replay.
Yep. What we did encounter, which made us all feel really icky, was the poison known as rupturing venom with its jaws attack, because this is a thick orange semi-alive venom that is injected into and seized within the body of its victim, and it deals poison and bludgeoning damage as the venom ruptures your flesh. I was like, come again? You say that poison's bludgeoning me? That is just awful. And it is a very straightforward poison. I like a lot of poisons are usually short duration, so maximum of 6 rounds, which is pretty common. Fortitude save, of course. It's only got 2 stages. Stage 1, 2d6 poison, 2d6 bludgeoning. And then the next round, if you fail again, you're doing 2d6 poison and 2d6 bludgeoning, and you're enfeebled 1. That's it. 2 stages. If you succeed again, you go back down, you lose the enfeebled, but so on and so forth.
I mean, that's not quite it now, is it?
No, it's not. I think I obviously missed it in my notes here, but we have a reaction that involves this venom, and it is called recall venom. I'm now realizing why I missed it, because I had to switch the order of the reactions to the passives, and I forgot to fill in my own blanks that I created. The recall venom, creatures within 30 feet of the creature that are suffering from stage 2 of this poison, they have to do a basic fortitude save, or they will take 7d6 bludgeoning damage, and the Chernobue regains HP equal to the damage.
That's
not
because
even
the
half.
venom is blowing its way out of your body and going back to the Chernobue.
My God. It says here, the Chernobue calls out telepathically to the semi-alive toxin, causing it to burst out of the target's body. That's
super
so
fun.
Messed up. And you're like, how do you recover from that? Never mind physically, mentally. How do you it's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I think this thing is really cool. It's so much like the Nyogoth. I think the poison is much more interesting than the acid theme, because it's just such a gnarly poison. And I like the offset of that blinded by bright light, or the burned by light. It's pretty cool. The
even the paralyzing display isn't horrible. I mean DC 32 is pretty high, but it's not that high for 10th level. So
it's odd to say it, but I almost do prefer the paralyzed for a minute save at the end of each of my turns over the stunned 5 and sickened 2.
Yeah, and you're just done for 2 rounds.
Brutal. You all, the patrons watching the combats, will know that sickened 1 really fucked me in one of these combats. Just that one. It was so bad.
It's like 3 rounds in a row where you missed by 1 or some shit like
by
that.
one on 2 or 3 different things. Yeah.
And I think it was against high level spells too. Yeah,
it might well have been. Yeah, so brutal.
So I feel like we just tanked the Ognagar. Spoilers for next episode.
Yeah, Cam did us a favor on that one. They could see our morale dropping.
Yeah, pretty late.
These guys a bone.
But we'll get into that next episode. Let's finish the Chernobue.
Yeah. So we are looking at some more casting, of course. It's got some 6 heightened cantrips, daze, and detect magic. Airwalk, like I said, is constant. Darkness at will. So Cam had started this creature with the darkness cast on itself and in the air. So we just had this giant black sphere in the air, which was a really cool imagery to start with. And then it just floated down towards us, which was really ominous. We've got a rank 5 spell here called Subconscious Suggestion as well. Also with Incapacitation. So we're finding this at level 10, which mattered for the incapacitation on the level 10 creature. But this thing being level rank 12 or whatever, it has some potential to overcome us. But this is a will save, as you imagine, a single creature, 30-foot range. You implant a subconscious suggestion deep in the target's mind for them to follow when trigger you specify occurs. Suggest a course of action to the target. Your directive must be phrased in such a way as to seem like a logical course of action to the target, and can't be self-destructive or obviously against the target's self-interest. And then you have your degrees of success that basically affect how much this can control them for how long, so on and so forth. The failure says the suggestion remains in the target's subconscious until the next time you prepare. If your trigger occurs before then, the target immediately follows your suggestion. The effect has a duration of 1 minute or until the target has completed a finite suggestion, or the suggestion becomes self-destructive or has obvious negative effects. So you have until your next preparations, and then if the trigger happens, this thing lasts for a minute. If you critically fail, it lasts for an hour, which is, depending on the instruction you've given it, is kind of terrifying. Now this didn't really come into play, but this adds to like the Qlippoth sort of like manipulation kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the danger level of the suite as a whole, not this particular encounter for sure.
So what I like about like when we covered sort of the Qlippoth lords and stuff and the demon lords and how they have these different motivations. And so you have some of them that just like, one is just going in and killing demons and dying and then regenerating in his own like weird lake, right? And they have another one that's actually, they're purposely going into like subvert entire kingdoms and like affect the city and take over the crown and start a war in order to create more death and destruction, through those actions, through those like sort of controlled actions. So that gives this creature the opportunity to be both, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, easily too. Like it's not. Yeah, it's just right there at rank 5, ready to go.
Yeah. You also have rank 6 Phantasmal Calamity. I love this spell. It's basically just it's one of the few spells that's so when they got rid of the schools of magic, illusion still stuck around as a trait because it was a very important thing to to kind of see through things that aren't real. But this basically creates a vision of apocalypse that fills your mind, dealing a bunch of mental damage. And if you critically fail, you think it's so real, you have to roll a reflex save to like, avoid it and stuff. And you can be stunned and take damage. And I think it's a really simple but flavorful spell. And I like it a lot. So fits right into Qlippoths in general. We also got Phantom Pain, which I thought was a little bit of an odd option because Phantom Pain is a non-lethal spell. But maybe it goes into the whole manipulation part. You're trying to take something for yourself, a creature, capture it, and manipulate it and stuff. Good pairing with the Shagti maybe, but yeah,
I didn't really get that vibe from the Chernobue's lore that this was like a take prisoners, make more Qlippoths kind of thing. I get the opinion that this is just it's like opening a cage, like here, go, attack, destroy. Like I don't get the impression of intelligence so much as just like natural ambition from this thing.
Yeah, but none of these creatures are dumb, which is kind of a great thing. I mean, it's got a +4 intelligence, but it's very smart. Yeah, they just have like such stark motivations to just like, like I might be really smart, but I'm just so inclined to destruction. It's just what I do. It's chaos. It's the outer rifts.
Hungry.
So hungry. And the last spell it has is Interplanar Teleport, previously known as Plane Shift. It can only cast on itself. It is exactly what you think it is. It can just jump between planes of existence. Most likely, I would assume, as an escape mechanism to go back to its own plane. But it is a cast time of 10 minutes, so it's not an oh shit button exactly. Right. But if it manages to crawl away and it wants to leave the material plane or what have you, it can do such a thing at its own volition. But yeah, that's the Chernobue.
I understand why they renamed it, but I don't think any of the renames bug me nearly as much as Plane Shift, Interplanar Teleport, or Transport, or whatever.
Some of them are really on the nose,
much worse. Like objectively worse in every
Plane
possible
Shift
aspect.
Sounds badass. Interplanar Teleport. Sounds, I don't know, it's so dry. It's just so drab and dry.
Well, and you're not teleporting. You're staying, like, unless the text of the spell has changed, you stay in the same spot.
Well, no, that's no, because you're thinking going to like the shadow plane where it's a reflection.
So it does teleport you. Okay, that makes,
because not all of these are reflections of the material plane, right? Yeah. And it does have a teleportation trait and everything. Yeah, but I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But yeah, that's it. That's the Chernobue. Now I got Chernobue. Interesting fight, messes up a bit. Had some fun.
We think
so. Yeah, definitely had some fun. Good takeaways. It's neat to see. I do think it's neat to see similar creatures that are similar to each other, but not just an obvious. This is a more powerful version of, you'll get a lot of those, the Pathfinder Society plays and stuff like that. They'll just have like increased versions of certain ones for the sake of like what level they're trying to play at, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But there's a sort of dullness when that's the only thing you get. If we just got like a differently shaped Nyogoth that the stats were higher on, I'd be disappointed. But I think they're different enough to give them a little bit of flavor, and it's cool that they're kind of like close in level as well. They're not like hugely far apart. It's not like a big 5 to 15 jump or something.
Oh. No, and you're right. They just play so well together. I think Cam did a great job deciding that these two go together in a combat, like not only thematically, visually, but also the combat wise. They both did what they were supposed to do, and they both did a pretty good job at it. The Nyogoth floated around, harried us, where the Chernobue just descended and just started messing shit up until we started being able to see it and blasting through the magical darkness. So
did you have any thoughts on the aura that's kind of negated beyond my unholy kind of combo?
So I not the aura itself. It just kind of reminds me that this series, this subset of creatures, Qlippoths, creatures with that tag, they're immensely complicated creatures to run from the GM side. And I think we may have done Cam a little dirty by choosing this as our first suite, because they've all got these amazing attacks. They've all got intelligence. They've all got this specific thing that they do. They all have these specific weaknesses. They all have spell casting. Like, they all have everything. Like, not a single one of these creatures has been missing one of the pieces from what makes a good creature. And in fact, I think there's too much going on for a lot of them.
Whether
so
it's like, I mean, the only thing they all seem to be lacking is a ranged attack. It's like the only thing so far.
Right? But I mean, they've got the spell casting, so why even bother?
Right.
So I just think the aura would have just been, a hat on a hat. Like, it doesn't need to make us sickened another more different way, because
what I remember Cam saying was, if the aura was there, we would have been that much more fucked up, basically, because we were probably a spread of, if not lawful, then likely good.
Totally.
We were running a theme of lawfulness because we were Hell Knights, I think, in our loose story, and so it would have affected more of us in general, which would have made the fight that much more difficult. It was already difficult, so maybe right, hat on a hat. No one needs Johnny Two Hats. Just
no. I mean, I don't mind if you want to throw in an aura or whatever. I don't care, but I don't know if I'd do it like this. Like, I don't think the party needs another status effect.
What I think would be cool is if you it has darkness at will. Why not just give it like a darkness aura?
I was gonna say.
Yeah. And then it incentivizes your players to actually cast some bright light, maybe, and suddenly you're doing extra damage, and you gotta give them a hero moment, like, oh, badass, the reason it has that darkness aura is to avoid the bright light.
I think that's a way better way to do it. Give them like a 15-foot dark cloud, emanation. Or aura, I guess, whatever one is from its square. And it would help lead them towards the bright light weakness without needing to pull a recall knowledge on it. And you don't have to spend the actions to cast darkness, which is good. This thing already hates light. Why would it be floating around without the darkness? So just give it the aura, and then if you want, you could give it, you could even give it the same thing, like a DC 29 will save. But when you enter the cloud the first time, you get a DC 29 will save or become sickened just because of its stench or something like that.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Just one and done. Not like
it's funny we say this because it's dawning on me. It's got a constant airwalk. An aura of darkness would just be a constant darkness spell. It doesn't need to be an at-will spell. Like, making an at-will spell is just like obligating you to spend 2 actions to recast it should it be snuffed out. I think it's way more interesting to give it a constant one and replace that, and just make that an essential part of the challenge. Maybe that genuinely increases the challenge of this creature across the board. But at this point, we had a fair few options to either suppress darkness or snuff it out. So um, usually auras are like, you get to turn them off and on with a single action. So you can still have an action cost in there should it be snuffed out. Suppress is different, which is really cool because the effect is still ongoing, but you can't reactivate it and push back. But if it is like kind of deactivated, then you have to spend that action to reactivate. I think that would be a more interesting approach for sure.
I think so too. I think we nailed it. I mean, there's not a whole lot I would change about either of these creatures because, as far as I can tell, we did just gank the Nyogoth, and the Chernobue was definitely more of a challenge, but it also has more going on for it. We were already worn down for the Nyogoth. Like there's I wouldn't have done anything different in those combats, And
I'm just remembering now too. One of the things that was cool about that fight was we kind of were focusing on that Nyogoth to start because this big black ball was coming at us. Only one of the characters could see through there, and this thing was kind of hitting us from a distance while it was a big black ball, and up until we did find a way to have everyone see through the darkness. So we didn't snuff out the darkness, but that fairy fire or what have you, it had given us a visual of this creature. And that is when Cam was able to use paralyzing display. So don't forget that visual trait. If you have this thing wrapped in darkness or a darkness aura, you can't properly use that display if the PCs can't see the creature. They have to see the creature specifically. Even then, like with concealment, like I think it was arguable that it had the full effect because we're seeing an outline at that point as opposed to the full creature. But
I think I made a vie for concealment on it.
Yeah.
It ended up getting overruled for whatever reason. But yeah, I mean,
it's worth keeping in mind.
Even if you solve this 15-foot darkness aura that we're talking about, this solve comes with its own downside. So like, I think that's probably the way to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. It's the way to go.
Yeah. Speaking of the way to go, I didn't have this prepared because that's not how I do things anymore, apparently. But from the Scooby-Doo show in 1976, we had this guy over here, first airing in September 11th. This is the tar monster from season 3, episode 40 of the Scooby-Doo show, but it may have aired in a Scooby-Doo Dynamite era or Laugh Olympics before that. This is the tar monster, who does make an appearance in one of the live-action movies, Scooby-Doo 2: Monsters Unleashed, where it looks like this, which looks a lot more like the Chernobue.
It really does. I love this. It's so good.
Just running through the streets of Vancouver.
And there's your on-the-fly, off-the-cuff pop culture reference.
Yeah, so and that's Burrard Street in the background, if you ever come to Vancouver.
Is it? Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. Cool. Good time.
Yeah. So hopefully I got more the next one, but
don't hold your breath.
Yeah. Anyways, if that's all you got and that's all I've got, that's all we've got. But if you've got something like a couple of bucks in your pocket that you want to help us make this show with, you can go over to patreon.com/unchartednorth. $5 will get you a handwritten thank you letter, theme button. There are a bunch of other tiers. Go check them out. If you want to follow us on any of the socials, you can do so. Links in the description. Scrolling along on the YouTube if you want some cool merch, t-shirts, hats. I think we got a couple of mugs, some stickers. unchartednorth.com/shop. You want to come tell us how wrong we are about these, head on over to the Discord, unchartednorth.com/discord. Direct access. One of the 5 of us, 6 of us is always around. Can always help.
There's always someone,
Yeah, exactly. If you want to find the notes that we used to make this, the Works Cited, all that stuff is over at encounterthis.ca. The Works Cited is finally post, so I apologize. Thank you for your patience. It's not formatted as properly as I would like, but it's not bad for a first go around. I will learn how to properly format Works Cited in the near future, but if it's got a book, it's got its ISBN. If it's got a website, it's got its link, so you'll figure it out. If you want to see this visually, because you're an audio listener, youtube.com/@EncounterPod. If you're on an audio, rate and review on your platform of choice, YouTube, Bell, YouTube things. And thank you so much for listening. We'll be back in a week with our next episode, 135, Ognagar and... Oh, God.
Say it. Can you say it?
Gongorinan.
Ah, yeah. Nailed it.
Well, yeah.
Very good. Thank you very much, listeners. We'll see you for some more creepy creatures that are hard to pronounce very soon.
Can't wait. Thanks.
Until next time, creatures, thanks, as always, for listening to Encounter This.